Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. My gosh, we are in Mississippi, but we're going to be talking Louisiana, I think. So pretty cool. We have Blaine Salter here, and I think everyone in Louisiana knows who you are, but now you're going to have to tell everyone, the world, tell them about yourself a little bit.
Well, we're still a small company
Right.
down in South Louisiana, which is Salter's Jiggin Pole, which my dad created a few concepts back in the 70s. We've been around about 40 years.
Wow.
Probably have about 50,000 users in our state, that use Salter's Jiggin Pole. But Dad's goal in the beginning, he absolutely loved to fly fish.
Right.
And down in South Louisiana, if you ever fish down the bayou somewhere, fly fishing is not too good. You'll be squirrel fishing if you use a fly rod. So
Right.
he got into some intense studies on how to develop a rod that actually turned a fly rod completely upside down. So if you can imagine the technique of using your opposite hand to retrieve and pull line,
Right.
that very light fly coming behind your head at the same time, and then the whip it creates to send that fly where it needs to go. His goal was to turn that concept upside down so everything he needed to fish thoroughly he could get to.
Right.
And he conquered that with the first rod we put out in 1981 on the market. It had been in trial and doing well before then, and we officially started in 1981. But that rod today, if I picked up the original prototype, it flips just like the one today. But technology is upgraded to graphite and carbon fiber and so on. So it was able to lighten up, and we created a great model along with a concept. So we don't just necessarily sell just a pole.
Right.
We're giving you the actual teachings on what to do, and your average angler can't get where they want to fish. They can see spots where they think fish are, so we developed a few methods that allow them, without today's technologies, to still be able to create a great fishing adventure, I guess you could say, when they start. So we take the beginning angler and immediately give them 1 to 4 years experience in just a 4-hour seminar.
Right.
That intermediate guy is also getting more advanced. And I can't tell you, when I do a seminar or we're at a trade show, I can't tell you, sometimes there'll be 60 newcomers and I've got 25 pros from other guys going, I can't believe what you're doing.
Right.
Because you can read about it. You can say, oh, this guy can move his arm 1 inch and get a 35-foot cast an inch off the water. Well, it just doesn't register until you see it live. And then what's even better is when I get that new customer along and they go, oh my goodness, this was so easy. And we just take it from there. We take the beginners, make them better. We take the intermediate guys and give them a step up, and we take the advanced guys and go, wow, I'm gonna put that one little technique into use, and then so we make everybody better, and that's the goal, to bring more people to crappie fishing.
And the casting, how long do you have? What number of rods do you have? What lengths do you have? And tell us, you have different lengths. Why do you have different lengths?
Okay, we started with the concept of one pole completes all. Okay, so a 10-footer is really what I use 90% of the time.
Okay.
As the new technology of live scope advanced in the last 4 to 5 years, that extra 2 feet of straight vertical fishing is where the industry is going to be in 5 to 10 years. It's where it's going, the technology. So being able to get just the extra reach is why we developed the 12 and 14 footer with the same concept to make it flip easy, but just to give you that extra 2 to 3 foot of reach.
Right.
And over the years of watching different methods, fishing docks and so forth, I always said in the back of my mind, I know a longer rod, it could be done. And it could be done with more leverage. So I started to work on some prototypes and say, hey, if I've got an 8 and 9 foot rod or even a 10-foot rod, say a 7 to 10, I wonder how much leverage I could create, trying a dock shooting method. So instead of getting right up on the dock shooting underneath it, we teach folks to move their boat back 6 to 8 to 10 feet so you can see everywhere underneath a dock. And our method of dock shooting, once I put it into action, I could not believe where it's gone. I mean, our 8 and 9, 10-foot models just blew out because you can literally shoot a jig flat on the water a good 40 to 50 feet very, 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 very accurately. And our rods are pressed underneath the elbow. So your normal dock shooting technique, there's a lot of up pressure on the wrist. So when you release the bottom bait, your wrist naturally comes up because your difference of the pulling of the bait is you're trying to hold that wrist stable, so you can't accurately aim. Ours is literally like shooting a bow and arrow. Whatever you can aim at, as long as you don't move your arm holding the rod, that bait is going to hit exactly where you go. And I mean, I hit a bottle cap at the last trade show from 50 feet.
Right.
And it's just, I can teach someone to do that. So it's relatable when I teach it.
Right.
And that's the difference. You see a lot of guys doing it and telling you what they're doing, but the average person doesn't have the coordination to do it. And we give them the confidence. You see those light bulbs go off, and they're like, oh, gosh, yes. And then it goes from there. I mean, word of mouth is still the #1 form of advertising ever.
Right.
When someone goes and tells their little fishing group, hey, you got to check this thing out. And that's how we've grown today, just from word of mouth.
So when you're doing this concept of casting that you have, what are you using for lures? Are you using jigs? Are you using are you using soft plastics? Or what's the deal?
We
on that?
use
and is it any? You can use any one, right?
You can pretty much use any one. I've even dock shot something as small as a 1/64th. You do have to watch your line. If you're shooting a very, 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 very light bait like a 1/64th, you want to go to a 4 or 6 pound test line. But my standard is an 8 pound test line and a 1/32 to 1/16. And you can shoot a 1/8. A 1/8 will, oh my gosh, it's like shooting a rifle underneath something. It just creates a lot more weight and a lot more whip. But in our styles of fishing, the slower the bait can fall, the more time that crappie has time to see it, because they hear it hit the water. They know it's there. And the slower I can get a bait to fall, it's just the more effective we've been, catching crappie, especially down in South Louisiana. But that's kind of universal throughout. The slower you can get a bait to fall, the concept is it's more in that fish's eyesight, more time. So usually a 1/32 is standard, or 1/16 is what I use, probably 80-90% of the time.
All right. So you have your rod, and you're fishing from shore or fishing from a dock. Is there a difference? Is there a preference? Or what happens there? Because you have, except maybe for your dad, I don't know for sure, one of you has the most experience at this. What would you say?
Well, I'm 46 years old.
Right.
My first demonstration with my dad, I was 5 years old, up in front of tank.
Wow.
In front of, 2,000 to 3,000 people back in those days, 400 or 500. And my dad could give a seminar. He's the only person today I've ever seen give a 2-hour seminar, and the crowd grew. Meaning nobody left.
Right.
Nobody looked at a watch. The crowd grew. And it's because of the way we teach. My only goal is I'm going to teach you something that you can put into play in your style of fishing. That's got to be the goal of every pro in the market. You don't want to stand up there and say, hey, I won this trophy because we were fishing down in Sardis in 35 foot of water. I was pulling crankbaits at 2.4 miles an hour, and you lose the crowd. What we're teaching is a universal technique that once it's put into play, there's no doubt that when you see it and you try it, you know it's going to make you better. And that's the difference. I want to give everybody in a seminar, a podcast, the just ability to know that they can do this style of fishing, and it's going to make you better, and you can put it into play back where you love to fish. And that's how a seminar or a podcast, that's always the goal, is to make somebody better.
Well, let's find out. Where's your favorite place to fish?
I am an Atchafalaya Basin just lover. I mean, it's 4 to 6 feet of water. Your live scope is irrelevant. It can see maybe something swimming, but you have to have the ability to put a jig exactly where you think that fish is.
I gotcha.
And the more you use your gut, the more it's usually right. Because most of the style of fishing we have is, imagine a bayou, and we have hurricanes down in South Louisiana, an average of 2 to 4 a year, depending on, it's been crazy the last few years.
Right.
But those trees blow over into the bayou. They sit on top 2 feet of water. Our fish are 2 feet underneath them, so you have to have the ability to get down through them. And we have an excellent little product, and still today, it's probably my retirement. It's the best weed guard that's ever been made.
Oh.
If you look at some of our videos and see how it works, it allows you to cast. Yeah, I do a demonstration in a tank where I cast into 2 Christmas trees and work the jig through them, never hang it up. So we give the person the ability to know that if they do make a bad cast, they're not going to get hung up. They can still get that jig down through wherever they're fishing. So we give them confidence to go where they've never gone before.
Right.
And that's the goal.
Is crappie your favorite, or red ear, or what if you had, because I mean that's pretty good eating either way, but what do you think your favorite is of the panfish?
It is a sac-a-lait, which is, if you're from South Louisiana, I didn't know what a crappie was till I was 20. I was like, what are they talking about? I mean, we started out making jigging poles from scratch. From the time I was 5, I had a job within our family. That was our job. We could make 12 rods a day. With 5 people working, at the end of the week, 60 were completed. We had a waiting list of 180.
Wow.
So when we had a trade show to come to, we had to double that output. So I had to get done with school and get back to making the eyes on every rod, because that was my job. I had the best eyes in the family, so I had to make the eyes. But my fun part was when I finally got to get to a trade show and in front of people. Right. At 6 to 8 years old, I was able to hold a seminar and talk. And the most important thing is teach. You know, we had, before Crappie University came about, which was great. I mean, what a great program, because you got so many pros together, and the average angler could get some one-on-one time. Right. We had Crappie University from 1980 to 94. We were in every major university. We were a 4-hour leisure class. It takes 4-hour leisure classes just to understand our style of fishing. Right. And when we're done, we make you a fishing machine. That's the goal. I want to sell you a new lifestyle, right? Not just a pole. Once you put it into use the right way, that light bulb goes off, and you know, wow, this is an efficient way to go about it.
Right. So what? Your dad's famous.
Famous.
Would you not say? But what's your favorite memory of fishing with your dad? What would that be?
I tell you what, there's so many that some stick out. One of my greatest memories, and folks, if you can remember this, trust me, it works, and it's probably the best advice I can give you. All right. I was about 7 years old, and we were going to one of our favorite spots at Old River, and we were going to be on the outdoor show with Bob Scarce, who was a famous sports writer, and back in the 80s and 90s, he had his show started after 10 o'clock on Thursdays. He had an hour episode. Well, my dad had a way of always kicking my behind. So Mr. Bob came up to me and he said, Junior, he said, let me tell you something. We're going to start filming, but you go get up in the front of that boat so that fish sees your bait first, which is very important in South Louisiana, because if they're an active fish, you know that when that bait hits, he gets it. So I said, I'm a little short fella. You know, my dad's the star. They still think he walks on water. Bless his heart. He passed about 5 years ago, and just the stories are unbelievable. Right. So I get up there, and Bob starts filming, and the first 4 fish I catch, boy, boom. I bring up a 2-pounder. I hold him. I put him in. Boy, my dad looks at me. He's, good job, son. Good job, son. Boy, number 2 come in. Boy, boom. I pulled him in. My dad kind of looks over. He's like, good job, son. But his voice got a little deeper. When I pulled the 3rd one in, when I put him in the box, he grabbed me and said, son, I'm supposed to be the star. I said, well, we're going to fight today, because I'm staying in the front of this boat. I'm not going in the back of that boat, partner. And I ended up catching the first 7, and I just had to ride him all the way home. Like, I got you today. I know what to do now. Right. So those were some of the fun memories. And, you know, you're back in those days, your dad was so hard on you, you never understood. Right. Gosh, this man, how can it be so tough? You know, he was a military guy. He's just hardcore about everything. Do this right, do this, that. And at 22 years old, when I'm running a company, I was like, how did that son of a gun know to be that hard on me? Right. And I just hope I can do that same thing to my kids today. You know, how can we keep that thing going? But that's one of the best memories I had, because I got him that day and I was on that TV. So from that point on, when I go to the show, you know, they would always give me a hug, and they say, boy, I bet you, did you poke your finger at him? I said, oh, I poked him. Did you see them big son of guns? And they're like, oh, that's fantastic. But
they're cheering for the underdog.
Oh, look, I was always underdog in the back of the boat, you know, because you're an underdog in the back. That fish has seen a couple baits before. Right. You know, so in South Louisiana, that's a big deal right there.
There you go. So you can find information. I mean, you have all kinds of rods and reels and things like products like that. that's going to take us to Tackle Time, and we'll come back and we'll visit with you just a second. Tackle Time is sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a full line of products, hard baits, soft baits that you can catch bass, crappie, any game fish that swim. PICO Lures has a product to catch those in any season. So make sure you check them out at picolures.com. And if they wanted to find out more about your products, where would they go? And give us a little rundown of what you have.
I have
poles, lures.
I have what Dad created was a tackle kit for the newcomers.
Right.
He only fished with 3 colors his whole life. I could still hear him up in heaven screaming at me, "What in the world are you doing?" Because I could start a whole new tackle shop with what's in my tackle box. But he had 3 lures, 3 different colors. And if you look online, if you just Google Salters or Salters Jiggin Pole, or you can Google Salters Jiggin Pole articles, and Louisiana Sportsman articles will come up.
Right.
We sell a tackle kit. And it's our favorite 3 colors with the right jig heads, corks, and assortment of everything you need to go crappie fishing.
Okay.
Along with our weed guards. And then we have a selection of poles. Our 10-footer is the #1 seller. You can find it on saltersjigginpole.com.
Right.
But there's thousands of articles. You can Google Salters on YouTube. Or not Google it, but go to Salters Jiggin Pole on YouTube. And I have some of my dad's teaching videos. And it's all episodes of him teaching, and you can find me on YouTube as well under our Salters page. And my dad was a wealth of knowledge because when a camera hit him, they never used to have to talk. He would give a whole seminar and teaching episode while he's catching fish, and he's got way more views than I could ever get on that YouTube because he was always the star. And he warned me that I was going to get thrown into the wolves because he said, "Son, I know you're young, but you don't know my customers." And I'm still finding customers. Miss Salter, I got 20 of your rides. I met your dad 15 years ago, and I'll never forget him. So that's my goal, is to meet someone and have the ability to never let them forget me after one meeting. So that's always a goal.
There you go. And you can also go to bradwiegmann.com, because I actually have a casting video of you at the Crappie Expo this year. So you can find that there. It's a good video, and it actually has good demonstrations.
That was one of the best videos
so.
that was the absolute best video that someone's ever filmed, to actually get the whole technique all in once. You've got some magic behind what you do, brother, and I certainly did appreciate that, because I can't tell you how many times someone's asked me, "Hey, I bought your ride, but it doesn't work like it's supposed to," and I send them to your video, and they're like, "Oh, I get it." So much appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. So that's it for the show. Appreciate you being here, Blaine. He will be around. He's at trade shows. He's everywhere pretty much. You'll be able to find him. And if not, just look for the crowd, because if there's a crowd, Blaine's probably got him around it. So we're going to end the show, and like I always like to say, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.